Hello, this is Woodblock printmaker Dave Bull here at my carving bench in our building in Asakusa, Tokyo. It's time already to introduce our next video. It's printmaking today. Recently we've had just too many videos talking about prints. It's long past time to get hands-on. This is going to be one of those step-by-step videos. You're going to watch as a blank sheet of paper gets transformed into a beautiful woodblock print. Here at my carving bench? Of course not, and it's not me who is going to make the print for you today. It's Natsuki Suga, who has appeared in a number of our previous videos. For the past week or so, she's been working at her bench on the third floor upstairs on a batch of prints for this year's subscription series. That's the Scenes of Nature, the ones based on designs by Isoda Koryusai. Last time we worked with her to make one of these videos, we had a routine worked out. Each time she moved forward to the next color in the process, she called downstairs to the office on the second floor, and Cameron-san there put aside his work, went upstairs and filmed it. Once all the steps were complete, he then of course edited the whole thing together. We're unable to do it that way this time because Cameron is teleworking from home around a half an hour from here by train. Not so easy to just run up the stairs a few times a day. So the camera work this time around was done by Aoyama-san, who is perhaps not so familiar to many of our fans because he stays pretty much in the background. He worked with me on construction of the shop here. He's making our wood blocks, searching for cherry wood here and there around the country, and then actually doing the bonding to make the actual blocks. And he built Suga-san's workspace, the one you will see in the video. So he organized the lights and tripods and stuff, and then under Suga-san's guidance, took tons of footage of the process as she went through the set. Each day he uploaded that footage to a place where Cameron over at home could access it, and he over there got busy with the editing, also communicating with Suga-san to decide what she wanted to be included and what she felt needed to be specifically explained to the viewers. Once they got close to the end stage, Cameron did jump on the train and come over here because he wanted to talk directly to her about her work on this print, and you'll see that conversation as part of this video too. Anyway, enough talk. Let's sit back and watch as the Mokuhankan staff team brings you the birth of a print. You know, I've been playing this game now for well over 40 years and I never get tired of watching this. Magic indeed.
In today's video, we are showing a few steps you've never seen before, such as paper cutting in the opening, and now an extended look at the paper moistening process, where Suga-san uses a simple basin of water and her wide mizubake, or water brush, to moisten groups of paper. We are often asked why the paper should be moist when printing. There are two main reasons for this. One, if we tried printing on dry paper, the sheets would expand unevenly as they absorbed the water from the blocks, and registration of multiple colors would then become impossible. And 2, the pigments would not sink in properly if the paper were too dry and hard. But what level of dampness are we aiming for? The printing paper should end up feeling about like a sheet that has just come out of the spin dry cycle, ready for hanging on the clothesline, damp and soft. The pieces of paper have been arranged, alternating between wet and dry sheets. Suga-san puts them away after moistening them to let the moisture spread evenly throughout the entire stack overnight. You will notice that she, and all our printers, also keep the prints inside of plastic bags with moist newspaper. This helps keep them evenly moist throughout the printing process. We also freeze our prints at night for multi-day printing jobs to prevent mold from growing in what would otherwise be a dangerously warm, moist environment. As is often, but not always, the case, today we start with the key block. This print's key block contains a large amount of delicately detailed areas, especially in the feathers, while also featuring some lines surrounded by white space. The variety here affects both the brushing and the pressing of the boden. It is important to spread the pigment evenly across the image with the brush. If too little is applied in an area, it will show up as a lighter gray. And if too much pigment is applied, or if it is not properly brushed, it may pool between some of the fine lines, causing pigment to be printed where it is not wanted. The key block provides the main reference on the prints for the registration or alignment of all the following impressions. If the registration of this first impression is done incorrectly, no later colors will line up. For the second impression, we have a light yellow shade on the Falcon. While this may appear to be a simple shape with only one area, it is important to note that large, flat areas require a bit more power than the thin lines of the key block do in order to get a smooth color across the image. Now wait a second, where did she go off the camera there? Let's watch that again from another angle. Oh, now I see. When printing large flat areas that require a bit more time and pressure like this, some of the moisture from the paper can get absorbed by the bamboo wrapping on the boden tool. This can cause the bamboo not to rub as smoothly due to increased friction. To counter the effects of the water, printers sometimes apply a little bit of oil, which Suga-san is doing here by tapping the boden against gauze, which has some camellia oil absorbed into it. She then rubs the tool against the felt sheet to evenly spread the oil around and remove any excess, and then finally returns to rubbing the paper. In the old days, printers would even rub the boden across their cheeks or hair to get natural oils for the same purpose. The color may look barely noticeable now, but when it contrasts with the later colors, you'll see how important it is to the final image. Though printing this area appears to be a quick process in the video, it actually proved to be a bit more complicated. Occasionally the Kento, registration marks, are misaligned. You can see that the yellow gold does not fit inside the lines from the key block here. This could be caused by just an accident in the carving, changing weather, or other external factors. Fortunately, our printers are equipped to handle this with their own blade, a Kento Nomi. Registration marks can be adjusted at any time. Suga-san today has to carve away just a little bit from the corner and bottom Kento marks. By the way, it is also possible to move the Kento up by adding small amounts of wood into a Kento mark, but we did not encounter that issue this time, so we'll have to save that for another video. After properly aligning the registration marks, printing moved forward. You can see the difference it makes to have everything lined up perfectly here. On vibrant colors such as this Vermilion, I love to watch the color appear from the back of the page. This one, like the key block, has a few narrow gaps where the printer needs to take extra care not to allow pigment to pool. Looking good. This background layer is even larger than the yellow feathers Suga-san printed earlier, and therefore requires quite a bit of extra power. You can see that she again starts the rubbing step by tapping the button onto the camellia oil to decrease the friction and make printing go more smoothly and quickly. On these large areas that require additional pressure, the printer also needs to be extra careful about not allowing the button to lean one way or another, accidentally dipping into the cleared areas and pushing the paper down into the valleys where pigment is ready to hop onto the page. This yellow on the Falcon needs to be a bit grayer than the yellow Suga-san printed earlier. To get it right, she uses the same cup of yellow as before, then adds a bit of red and a bit more yellow and finally some sumi black pigment to add some grayness and dull the vibrancy of the color. The distinct hint of grayness that comes from adding sumi to each color is one of the defining features of the look of traditional Japanese prints. Early printmakers created a very wide range of colors and shades using just a limited palette of pigments and varying levels of sumi. You can see that this block is divided into two clearly visible color areas. We will see her use the bluish area later. When we have smaller areas to print, we can conserve resources and carve areas needed for two different impressions on the same block face. It is important that they are carved far enough apart, usually about 2 finger widths, so that when the printer is applying pigment, they do not accidentally bump an area intended for another color. As long as there is enough space, and the carved areas are small, you can fit quite a few impressions on each block face. Later, I will point out when Suga-san prints the third color on another of the blocks you may not have noticed was already being reused. And here it is! This block was previously used first for the yellow metal ornamentation on the perch, and then for the bird's yellow feet. Here you can see Suga-san using this metal tool to protect her registration mark from getting pigment on it as she brushes so close to the corner. Now we are adding pink circles to the flag where there was white space before. There will be one more special impression on the flag later. Though to an untrained eye, such as mine, the pigment may look very dark in that cup, an experienced printer like Suga-san knows exactly how it will look when it goes onto the page. You will notice here that this block has an area that is carved for the background of the cartouche. Early on in the planning of the series, we thought we might add color to the cartouches, and therefore had the backgrounds carved just in case. After some testing, and you can see the hint of leftover pigment remaining on the block, we decided it would look better if left plain white, so this block face is only getting used the once for this blue rope impression. You have seen this block face once before, when Suga-san printed the flag's pattern. Here, the blue adds some majesty to the Falcon's appearance. The final color impression is a special one, called paru, or pearl in Japanese. It doesn't actually contain any pearl at all, but it usually includes mica as well as other substances, and would be better described as pearlescent. This pearl pigment is suspended directly in the same pink pigment mix that was used to print the flag. As Suga-san mixes it, it turns a lovely silvery color. But if she leaves it for just 30 seconds or so, the pearl all sinks to the bottom as shown in this sped up footage. So it is important to mix it and get it all suspended in the mixture right before placing it on the blocks. Usually when she is brushing her pigments, you cannot see the pigment on the dark bristles of the brush, but here with this reflective pearlescent pigment, it's easy to see how much pigment is on the brush. Now let's see how it looks. Can't see its luster too well from this angle, so let's get a bit closer. Beautiful. As is tradition with our subscription prints, we ask our printers to emboss the carvers and printers' names on each print. Each one only takes a few seconds, so let's watch her do it from a few different angles. Here is another step I believe we have never included in any of our process videos before. We want to show you today how we at Mokuhankan dry our prints and prevent them from warping. As mentioned before, we keep the prints moist throughout the entire printing process, and to keep them from molding we freeze them at night. But in the end we do indeed need to dry them so they can be enjoyed by customers for years to come. Here she starts with her stack of 80 prints next to one of our tables set up specifically for drying prints. She then carefully arranges the prints in rows. The prints are put in pairs and placed on top of our very heavy cardstock, which absorbs the moisture from the prints. Then she carefully adds several layers of the heavy board directly on top of the prints, and starts another layer of prints again, in pairs. She follows this pattern several times until she reaches the end of the stack of prints. She uses a white sheet of paper to write her name and what prints are drying there. She leaves it there in the drying stack overnight. And it looks like another printer added prints on top of Suga-san's. Once they have dried, which may take 1 or 2 nights, she carefully pulls them back out, rotating them to face the same direction again, and gets them and the blocks all wrapped up and ready to go. The blocks then go to the next printer who will work on this print, and the prints go to Dave for inspection.よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
いつもありがとうございます。このビデオに参加してくれて。
いえ、とんでもない。こちらこそまたよろしくお願いします。お疲れ様です。
はい。
はい。
前回のビデオはもうだいぶ前ですが、
久しぶりですね。
そうですね。その前はジャパンジャーニーでしたよね。
あ、そうですね。ジャパンジャーニーの時だ。茶畑の時だ。そうだそうだ、作品だった。
ジャパンジャーニーと去年のシリーズと今年のシリーズを比べると何が違いますか？
そうですね。今年のこのシリーズはジェドさんの作品って、もう絵もそうなんですけど、割と絵の重なり、絵の具の重なりが多くて、どっちかっていうと現代版画とか、そういう新版画みたいな、そんな感じに近かったんですけど、まあずっと2年間ぐらい12ヶ月でやってたけれども、今回は久しぶりに
コリュ
ウサイですね。コリュウサイ、磯田コリュウサイの作品の、ね、昔のちょっと浮世絵な感じになって、久しぶりにこう浮世絵だっていう感じでねそんなに重なりも少ないですし、なんかちょっと楽しいです。
ぼかしもないですよね。
ぼかしもそういえばないですね。今回はぼかしはなかったです。1月はぼかしあるのもありますけどね。少ないですね。
でも 今回はぼかしはなかったけどパール使いましたよね。
そうですね。今回3月に入っている特徴的なのは、パールの絵の具を使ったんですよね。
それ初めてでしたか？使ったことありますか？パール。
パール初めてで、パール初めて使ったんですけど、最初どういう風に吸ったらいいのかなって、思ったんですけど、今回は普通に、絵の具と水に溶いて、で普通の絵の具と同じように水につけて、動画にもあるんですけど、そうやって使いました。で、あと普通じゃないと、普通っていうかいろいろね、やり方がパールとか金とか錫とか、そういう、金属系というか、ちょっとこう粉のあるもの、細かいふわふわしたものとか、
特別な絵の具
そういうのはこう煮皮を先に吸ってポンポンポンでやったりするやつもあるけれども、でも今回は普通にね、絵の具で溶いてやったので。
なるほど、ありがとうございます。菅さんの聞くと、結構釣りが好きみたいな感じがしますが、これ本当に興味深くて、いろいろ詳しく知ってるみたいですが、どうして好きなんですか？
そうですね、なんだろう、みんながみんなそうではないかもしれないんですけど、割とこう淡々と黙々と仕事をしているのが好きで、こうつけて絵の具吸ってつけてブラシで吸ってっていう、そういうこう黙々と淡々とする仕事が好きなんだと思います。あとは色がどんどんこう少しずつ重なっていって、絵になる、絵ができてくるっていうのがすごい楽しいと思います。
いいですね。
楽しいです。
難しいところもありますよね。どこが難しいですか？
難しいところは、なんだろう、同じように1から10までとか1から100枚まで、こう全く同じように仕上げなくちゃいけなかったり、同じ色でこうカラーコピーみたいにこう、印刷だからっていうことで、同じようにぼかしたりとか、同じような色でずっと続けてやらなきゃいけないっていうのが大変だと思います。
ですね。もう結構長く吸ってますがまだ勉強になってますか？
それはもう毎回毎回いろいろ勉強になります。難しいところもあれば、なんだろう、毎回毎回いろんな発見があって、こうすればよかったんだとか、こうやってみたら、こうなるんだっていうのがもう毎回発見なので、もうずっとなんだろう、勉強、一生勉強になるなと思います。満足してすれるのは先だなと思ってます。
じゃあ話題が少し変わりますが、最近コロナ禍があるんじゃないですか。それはどんな影響されてますでしょうか？
そうですね、去年とかに緊急事態宣言が出てた時は、なるべく外出もできなかったので、去年の4月とか5月とかはちょっとお家で吸ったりとかしてたんですけど、お家でねする準備とかもこうその動けない間にちょっとずつしたりしてやってましたけど、あとマスク作ったりとか
ですよね
してましたけど、でもだんだんちょっとずつ解放されてきて、で今は電車に乗って来てるんですけど、浅草の木版館また通うようになったんですけど、電車もラッシュの時間を避けて朝早い時間に来て、なるべく帰りも早く帰ってラッシュ混んでる電車に乗らないようにして、
何時頃来てますか？
朝7時半頃に来てます。
すごいですね。
朝5時ぐらいに起きてます。5時、4時半5時。
木版画の作りたい方にアドバイスか、言いたいことありますでしょうか？
そしたらなんか みんなそれぞれきっと彫ったり、いろんな彫りの表情とかすりの表情とか、紙を使ったりとか、みんないろいろ考えてやってると思うんですけど、こう好きなようにこうあんまりこういろんなことにとらわれないで、好きなように自由に自分の作品を作って表現してもらえたらいいなと思います。
ありがとうございます。
はい。
じゃあ他の質問ありますでしょうか。
まだ質問されてない人がここにいると思いますけど、そこそこ。
久しぶりですね。
あゆみさん久しぶり。
久しぶりです。
ご無沙汰で
元気です。
元気。
吸ってます。